The submarine must be stopped at all costs as it has revolutionized naval warfare. With torpedoes that can threaten any ship, anywhere. The battleships can be built back, but the food and trade links of soldiers and other non-foodstuffs were vital to Britain, France and even Russia in the east. The only fear that Germany had for the U-boat was bringing neutral nations into the war, but with a last-minute gamble and with the Eastern Front won, they launched unrestricted submarine warfare. For most of the war, the cargo and troop ships sailed alone with no escort in the middle of the ocean. The U-boats didn't even have to use torpedoes to destroy the ships as they had naval guns on the top deck. After much debate, the British and Allies started to use convoys, which helped, and even used song detectors behind the ships. When one was detected, they would fire some depth charges to explode on impact or at a certain time or certain depth. But the British said the only way to stop the wasps is to block the wasp nests at Zeebrugge. The main U-boat headquarters were at the city of Berg, but they were stationed at Osten and Zeebrugge, that linked them to Berg by canal. With a narrow canal, we cannot capture it. Airdrop methods were still not fully developed yet. We cannot bombard them from the sea or air. The U-boats were housed in concrete facilities that would be ineffective. There was only one way to stop the U-boats, and that was to block the canals with block ships at the points where the canals were at the sea, as proposed by Admiral Robert Keyes. Both ports were very well protected with troop artillery, ocean anti-SKS batteries and anti-air defences. The entrance was guarded by a mile-long mole which went 24 feet into the air and would need to be captured before the blocked ships could get close enough. Keyes planned for shallow water ships to act as a landing craft and disembark with elite naval troops, 700 men of the Royal Marines and the 63rd Division. He used the HMS Vindictive for the task, which was refitted with extra armour and guns, and added 18 more landing ramps to be loaded on the mole. Much like the Canadians, they practiced the attack repeatedly. The mole had arches which linked the mole to the mainland, and they were planned to be blown up by an obsolete submarine, the C-3, so the troops could not reinforce the mole. There was just one problem. The other night a destroyer had docked on the other side of the mole where the Vindictive was supposed to land the troops. Keyes along with the task force left the harbour on the evening of the 22nd of April to block the Hornet's nest. It was the calm before the storm as the crossing was smooth and calm. For a week before the task force, the monitors were firing off the coastal guns to destroy German batteries and strong points. Night fell and the German searchlights watched for intruders as they probed the dark mole, as the town behind them was lit up by British bombardment. At 11:30, the British coastal patrol boats surged in to make a smoke screen. As the wind blew northwards, it blew directly into the mole. The Germans got on quickly as they tried to fire at the boats, but the smoke started to blind their vision. The captain ordered full steam ahead to the mole as all three ships raced into the smoke screen. In the mole, the Germans could not see their enemy with 250 yards until they reached the mole. The British ships appeared from the smoke screen. In the mole, the Germans could not see their enemy with 250 yards until they reached the mole. The British ships appeared from the smoke screen. With the time from the smoke to the mole, 2 senior officers and 2 marines were already killed in 2 minutes. The German destroyers from earlier were called up and launched a bombardment on the Vindictive. The heavy curve on the mole made it hard for Vindictive to get a good hold on the mole. The Germans were now firing at point blank range and the bunched together marines were now being slaughtered. In one life or death situation, one of the captains from the reserve ships turned and pushed Vindictive on the side of the mole. The landing ramps were down and the marines rushed onto the mole. One officer told his unit to move up, but when he turned around they were all dead, killed by 1 machine gun. Despite the fire from the Germans, the marines got onto the mole with the help of men from Lewis guns and pom-pom guns on the top of Vindictive. The men from the escort ships could not make it on top of the mole's walls, 24 feet high, so they climbed up Vindictive to use her as a landing ground. As they got onto the top of the wall, they were all cut down by machine gun fire. They tried to make a rush for the tip of the mole, but every man was a casualty. The Germans within the bunkers and anti-ship artillery were very hard to root up. The gallantry of marines had an effect, so they pushed further onto the mole. The Germans were so preoccupied with the battle on the mole that the block ships got past them, and they waited to be scuttled. The Germans had one ace up their sleeve that can actually abort the whole mission as a bicycle battalion. The Germans had one ace up their sleeve as they could actually see. The Germans had one ace up their sleeve that can actually abort the whole mission, as a bicycle battalion was seen heading towards the mole, which would put the numerical advantage on the German side. But just then, the sub C-3 appeared in the nick of time and blew the archers, leaving the Germans separated. Quickly, they dropped aboard a mini fishing boat. While some were injured, they all got away safely as the sub destroyed the archers. 12 minutes later, the Germans' hope for reinforcements was over. With the Germans on the mole focusing on the Marines, the block ships started to move into position. The elderly warships of the Faganaya, the Tepid and the Theus had 50 tons of explosives, scuttle charges and concrete. As they rushed to the entrance, the Germans in the entrance of the port had fired on the 2 ships. The Theus was badly damaged and started to fill with water, meaning it was a goner with the concrete on board. So the captain ordered the scuttle there. Despite the heavy German fire, the other 2 ships, the Faganaya and the Tepid, made it and were ready to be scuttled. Still, as they sailed off with the crew with 10 minutes to the explosions, they started to recall all Marines before they blew up. The cruiser was able to get away to England fairly unharmed. She was part of the success at the mole, but with a high cost. 13,000 men, 600 were killed or wounded. 2 ships, the Faganaya and the Tepid, did not fully close the gap. But the Faganaya and the Tepid did not fully close the gap, but with the Vindictive, after heavy fire and aging, she had become a sunk ship and she closed the gap a month later. As day broke, however, it was shown that the 2 block ships had actually blocked the ports. It was a nighttime raid, so visibility was hard. It came as a morale boost. At that time, the Germans were on their way to Paris in 1918. The Zeebrugge raid was the biggest and most coordinated attack of World War I, with block ships and the Sea Tree sub destroying the archers. Keyes would see more daring operations and wacky operations in 1940. This was the beginning of Special Ops Forces and Special Operations, or Black Ops. It would shape the wacky operations and plans of World War II and beyond, and showed with enough time, maps and good leaders, a mission could be possible. Alright guys, that is pretty much the second last video of the series. Might just do the KAR, the King's African Rifles, tomorrow. Possibly the C-class sub and the C-class airship, to kind of wrap up sea and air at the same time. Ingenious, I know. A ship, an airship that is supposed to be anti-sea defense, so makes sense for AS to be that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Still tired from last night, a lot of editing, so hope you enjoyed. Was sleepy, but hope you enjoyed. Anyway, learn something.